We ran a lot of races here, a lot of elections. He never lost, never really very close. Arizona loved him. We had one little blip one time when he ran for the Senate the first time. He called me on the phone. He goes, well, boy, I think I might have screwed up. I go, what? He said, well, you know, I was talking to these students at U of A, and they said, how come you're the only politician that comes down here? They only go to the retirement places. He said, well, it's because you guys don't vote. Okay? Those other dudes vote like 100%, you know, so you want people to come down here, you need to vote like they vote out at Seizure World. I said, you didn't say that, did you? Because there's this big retirement community called Leisure World in the East Valley. And they weren't real happy with their new nickname out there. So John said, like he always does, he said, okay, I screwed up, let's go. We got to go out there. And so we went out, and I remember we drove in, and there was about a 90-year-old guy in a golf cart right there, and he was giving us the finger. And little did he know, we both said, that's great. We love that. And John was like, hey, good to see you. Good to see you, pal. Thank you, thank you. So he went in, he said, oh, sorry about that, and went to work. And guess what? I think he won that about 85-15 in that election, in that precinct. So we're going to miss so many things about him here in our state, his leadership here on these important issues. We're going to miss his sense of humor. We're going to miss his love of sports. He loved the teams, all of our teams. I mean, by love them, I mean love them, like nonstop, okay? And he loved you guys, Fitz and Gonzo and Shane. He really did. Not a coincidence. He didn't become friends just with the best players, but with the best people. And he loved you guys. But I think we also worry here in Arizona about a bigger picture. And I hope that what he stood for will maybe get renewed look in our country. That's what he would want. He would want us to, okay, we recognize him now, but now let's get to work. And I'm sure the Vice President will talk about John and bipartisanship, but he believes so much that this, in the end, when it's all said and done, this Republican-Democrat thing's not that important, is it? We're all Americans, and you've got to get to the point where we can work together as Americans. His support of the military, I hope you members of Congress will keep that strong. It was so important that he had their backs. And one other thing, John McCain believed in our Constitution, and he stood up for it. He fought for it every step of the way. So he would not stand by as people tried to trample the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, including the First Amendment. And you know what? He believed in the Declaration of Independence. When we proclaim to the world that every single human being is important, every single human being is precious, every single person in this world has the right to live free. Not because the government says so, but because God gave us that right. So John McCain, his entire life, stood by the freedom fighters across the world. He was there. He was there figuratively and literally, by their side, wherever they were, acknowledging their right to live free. It's a long and winding road that took him from that dirt yard in Hanoi to the dirt back roads of Hidden Valley. But through it all, he was resolute. He was courageous every step of the way. And in Arizona, he was our hero. I think you can see from this outpouring of support and love for John McCain that he was America's hero. Senator John McCain from Arizona. He served his country with honor. He fought the good fight. He finished the race. He kept the faith. Now, my friend, we can finish the song. Sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Amen.
Well, I had the great opportunity of meeting Congressman John McCain in Washington. C.A. Hallett was back there, and I was visiting, and he said, you need to meet this congressman, this young maverick, full of energy. And I said, oh, yeah? He says, besides that, he's going to become president of the United States one of these days, so you need to meet him. I said, okay. So we met in Virginia, in my apologies. It was rough getting up here. Alexandria. Cindy and C.A. and myself, and we had dinner in this nice little restaurant. And we chatted for a while, and then all of a sudden, with John McCain, you just bond. I mean, there's something about his energy level that goes up. He starts talking, starts asking me about my background. Of course, I, not knowing him that well, asked him about his, and before I knew it, we felt very comfortable with each other going back and forth. So then I got enough nerve to ask him. I said, Congressman, what was it that allowed you to be in a prisoner of war camp? I mean, what kept you together? And he said, well, he goes, you know, most people ask me how they treated me, and obviously they treated me pretty bad. He goes, but he said, one is my faith in God, my love for my family, and my faith in my country. He said, those things kept me together. So we kept talking that evening, and as I thought about that discussion, and for this talk, I wanted to reflect with you a reading from Corinthians 13, which I think captures Senator John McCain. Corinthians 13. Though I should give away to the poor all that I possess, and even give up my body to be burned, if I am without love, it will do me no good whatever. When you think about an individual like Senator McCain, who suffered, who was in prison, was injured, and yet with all that was able to keep his faith together, his focus on his country, focus on his family. I believe that period of time, those 5 years, is where God molded this fantastic hero, where God took an opportunity to humble this young man, where God molded this fantastic hero, where God took an opportunity to humble this young man who came from a military family. God used those minutes, those hours, those days, those years to put together a human being that we'll be talking about the senator for generations. John McCain was a person who loved, with his energy, who loved all of us, who loved his country. That evening while we were having dinner, he said, when we get back to Phoenix, we need to get together and have dinner. And of course, back then I was pretty cocky. So I said, well, Congressman, I know a number of congressmen and I know a couple of senators, and, you know, we always hear that. He says, well, no, when you get back, you give me a date and I'll be there. I said, well, I'm going to invite you to my house. Us Mexican Americans love to cook, and we love to have folks at our homes if you're really going to be a friend. And he chuckled. So a couple of months later, when I got back home, we called, set up a dinner at the house. And of course, I was preparing carne asada, frijolitos, arroz, tortillas, and all the stuff that you all know about, and my homemade salsa. And I get a call from his office. They say he's running late. So I asked, what's the problem? I said, well, it's his birthday. He wanted to spend a little bit of time with his family. Sorry, Cindy. And of course, I panic and say, you know, if he wants to cancel, I understand, please. They said, no. He made it very clear to us, he's going to your house tonight to have dinner. So I scrambled and got a mariachi group. I figured I got to do something really good. Mexican food's not going to get me there. And luckily, they got there about 10 minutes before he arrived. So when Cindy and the congressman then walk into my house, the kitchen, the mariachi start playing. They sing in the mañanitas, which is a traditional Mexican birthday song in our culture. And of course, John and Cindy lit up, and it was a great evening, and we enjoyed the night. That's Senator John McCain. Keeps his word. That's the senator that we've had all these years that sometimes we beat up on. That's the senator that I hope people can embrace what he stood for our country. And yes, he was a maverick. In his first senatorial campaign, I get a call, and it's him on the phone. I'm with Father Tony, a dear friend of mine, and they say you got the congressman on the phone. I don't know how he tracked me down, but we're in a restaurant. So I get the phone, and he says, Tommy, I'm running for the U.S. Senate. I'm going to launch, blah, blah, blah. You know, John, he was going 100 miles an hour. So I'm going like, okay. And then he says, I want you to co-chair my campaign. I said, well, John, you know I'm a Democrat. I'm not sure that's going to help you with your Republican campaign. I said, I don't care. You're my friend. I want you to co-chair it. I said, well, let me sleep on it. No. You give me an answer right now, yes or no. And of course, I said yes. Once again, Senator John McCain goes over to the other side. And don't forget, I was like an activist back then. I was running Chicanos por la Causa. I mean, we were not the most liberal organization or the most conservative organization in the country. And we go back and forth with John. You either were a friend or not. And at the end of the day, we could go a couple of years without seeing each other. But when we did, it was like old home week. I mean, he was warm, he was energy. I mean, he was going 100 miles an hour, but yet he made time to be with you. And then the second time, we get a call, Elvira and I, to come to Las Vegas. And this is, of course, when he's in his presidential campaign. And we end up in Las Vegas with his two right-hand folks that have always run his campaigns, which I have the greatest respect for. So we do the quick chit-chat, and then John says, I want you to speak on my behalf at the Republican convention. I said, Senator, I want to remind you I'm a Democrat. I don't care. I want you there. So you're my friend. I want you there. I said, yes, I'll be there. He said, well, he says, with a big smile on his face, watch out when you start your car. I said, okay, Senator. I'll do that. So John kind of put me out on the national scene. And I must confess, he did a number of things that I could stand here all day and share with you different stories. I will tell you that one time when we met is when McCain was on the TV program, and I don't even remember the name of the TV program, McCain, but he said, well, you know, McCain's on TV now, and blah, blah, blah. I go, yeah, okay. Do you see her? No, Senator, I don't watch TV that much. Well, you start watching her. Okay. So that was our great senator. As we were walking out, he asked my wife, Elvira, he says, Elvira, I got a question for you. If I put a woman on our ticket as vice president, what do you think about that? Well, my wife isn't the type that holds back. She's a Mexican from Mexico City, and they have a tendency of just telling you how it is. And of course, the senator liked that. So she turns and she says, well, I really don't care if it's a man or a woman. If something happens to you, I want to make sure that person can run the country. So John looked at her and says, okay. And he looked at his two guys, and of course we walked out. Needless to say, we heard later who had selected. But again, regardless, there was the senator again, taking the risk of putting forth a woman for vice president of this great country of ours. So it's of no surprise. It's of no surprise also that he got together with Kennedy to push for immigration reform. Because when he talked about immigration, it wasn't so much the politics of it. He would say, you know what, I can't believe these families that come from another country, from Mexico, from Central America to work, cutting our grass, feeding us, bringing in the labor force that we need, and now we turn on them? That really struck at the heart of what he thought our great country was about. I believe it cost him a presidential campaign. So to me, it's very dear what the senator is about. To me, John really did reflect our country in its true form. My father is a Marine, passed away in February. Once a Marine, always a Marine, he'd say. Got wounded in Guam, got a Purple Heart. When he talked about John McCain, he said, he understands us. He understands us. And I must confess, he did understand us. He understood all of us, whether it was white, black, brown, Asian. To him, it didn't make any difference. What he knew is that we all make America great. We all make America great. So I hope that in his legacy, the senators, governors, mayors, city council members, elected officials embrace the thought of love, because John reflected love and love of a strong man. And that is nowadays hard to come by. So his legacy will go on for generations, because people will talk about Senator John McCain as one of the greatest heroes in our lifetime. And with that, if you permit me, read Timothy 2. As for me, my life is already being poured away as a libation, and the time has come for me to depart. I have fought the good fight to the end. I have run the race to the finish. I have kept the faith. My dear friend, vaya con Dios. Gracias.
fell in love with my country when I was a prisoner in someone else's. Senator McCain spoke these heartfelt words as he accepted the Republican nomination for president in 2008. They were the words of an authentic American hero. We all know how the story goes. A fiery Navy pilot shot down by the North Vietnamese over a lake near Hanoi. As his plane spun out of control, he bailed out just in time to plunge into the lake below. That pilot, a young John McCain, was taken hostage as a prisoner of war, where he spent more than 5.5 years, almost 2,000 days. He would endure countless beatings, torture, solitary confinement, and mental and emotional anguish that none of us will ever have to endure. After getting to know Senator McCain, I felt compelled to visit Vietnam. I wanted to see the places where the will of John McCain was tested and forged. I saw the lake. I walked the steps. I sat in the cell. And the ordeal that my friends survived became all the more real. Many people might wonder what a young African-American kid from Minnesota and a highly decorated Vietnam War hero turned United States Senator might have in common. Well, I thought of a few. I'm black, he was white. I'm young, he wasn't so young. He lived with physical limitations brought on by war. I'm a professional athlete. He ran for president, I run out of bounds. He was the epitome of toughness, and I do everything I can to avoid contact. I have flowing locks, and well, he didn't. How does this unlikely pair become friends? I've asked myself the same question. But do you know what the answer is? That's just who he is. Over the several years, I had the privilege of spending time with Senator McCain. Sometimes it was just a visit to our practices. Other times it was him texting and saying, "Hell, you need to pick it up this Sunday." I'm thankful that through these moments, the opportunity that we had to share our lives, and more importantly, our stories. While from very different worlds, we developed a meaningful friendship. And this highlights the very rare and very special qualities of Senator McCain that I came to deeply admire. He didn't judge individuals based on the color of their skin, their gender, their backgrounds, their political affiliations, or their bank accounts. He evaluated them on the merits of their character and the contents of their hearts. He judged them on the work they put in and the principles they lived by. It was this approach to humanity that made Senator John McCain so respected by countless people around the world, including me. His accomplishments were many: U.S. Senator, presidential candidate, statesman, warrior, and hero. His work ethic, tireless. His fight, legendary. But what made Senator McCain so special was that he cared about the substance of my heart, more so than where I came from. While some might find our friendship out of the ordinary, it was a perfect example of what made him an iconic figure of American politics and service to fellow man. He celebrated differences. He embraced humanity, championed what was true and just, and saw